Welcome back. Tapping on to consumer passion points, sports, Mastercard has been globally associating with sporting properties, and recently the brand has also taken keen interest in sports beyond cricket in the country. Recently, the brand became the presenting sponsor of Delhi Golf Club Open for the second time, and just a few days later in Mumbai, leveraging its cricketing association for a positive societal and environmental impact, Mastercard chose 22 children to walk alongside the Indian team with potted plants ahead of the first India-Australia ODI match at Mumbai's iconic Wankhede Stadium. The initiative was a part of Mastercard's Priceless Planet Coalition (PPC), which aims to highlight the significance of reforestation to counter climate change. To tell us more about it, we are now joined in by Manasi Narasimhan, Vice President and Head Marketing and Communication South Asia, Mastercard. Manasi, welcome to CNBC TV18.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Manasi, last week during the India-Australia ODI, children walked alongside the Indian cricket team with potted plants in their hands as a part of your Priceless Planet Coalition, PPC. Tell us more about this initiative, and how did you come up with the idea of having children walk alongside cricketers?
I think regarding the Priceless Planet Coalition, I think everyone will agree that the world is facing a climate crisis and all of us need to do our bit. And children are the best sort of emblems or mascots of this, right? We need to leave the world a better place for our children. And this entire thing came very well together. Mastercard has a global initiative called the Priceless Planet Coalition, whose goal is to plant 100 million trees worldwide within the next 4 years. So we are working with an organization called Conservation International, identified several tracts around the world where trees will be planted in a very scientific basis. Now, coming back to the match, the idea was also to create awareness about what we are doing, because as the name implies, it's a coalition. We want people to join us. It's not something that obviously any organization can do on its own. It's a partnership between government entities, non-government, public, private, individuals, foundations, everything. So how do you create awareness of that? And cricket, as you know, is a religion in this country. Anything that's said or done on cricket is like national news. So we had this very good campaign in collaboration with the BCCI, where we said, let these children who were selected via various campaigns walk out onto the field holding these plants. Because I can tell you as a mother and as a marketeer that when children are convinced, the entire family is convinced, So, and also for the children, I mean, it's such a priceless experience. Imagine walking out there, holding the hands of a cricketer. These kids will talk about it for the rest of their lives, and so will their parents and everybody else.
A lot of involvement in sports by Mastercard I have seen over the past couple of months beyond cricket, like, in the sport of golf, for example, badminton, for example. Yes. How does it help the brand? How do these sponsorship help the brand?
So we sponsored the Delhi Golf Club, the DGC Open, which is part of the Asian Tour. This was the second year in a row. We have Shiv Kapoor as our brand ambassador. And again, what we try and do as a brand is, of course, the branding and the salience is important, but that's kind of table stakes, right? Or as they say in golf, that's par for the course. What we try and do is to extend the brand above and beyond. And I'll just give you two examples of DGC because it's so recent. One is we had Shiv Kapoor, our brand ambassador, conduct a golf clinic for women golfers. And for us at Mastercard, diversity in sport is a huge thing. I mean, we ran a very successful, even if I say so myself, campaign for women's cricket. We had MS Dhoni conduct a coaching clinic for young girl and women cricketers, and we extended that to golf. We also, as part of this whole philosophy of doing well by doing good, and the DGC is a stunning location. I mean, even if you know nothing about golf, the location is just beautiful with some historical monuments and peacocks and so on. So we actually got some artists from the Delhi Street Art Collective to paint pictures, had them displayed there, and the proceeds from those sales went to the NGO Akshay Patra, which, as you would know, does a lot of good work with children in schools and so on. So long story short, what I think we try and do with our sponsorships is go beyond the basics and say, how can we bring our brand to life? How can we demonstrate the various facets? Now, whether that's diversity and inclusion, whether that's about doing well by doing good. In other sponsorships, we've extended the Sonic brand, so the whole multi-sensory bit. And that's our philosophy of sponsorship. So how does it help? I think there are different segments. While yes, I think all of us in India are, or most of us are cricket crazy, there is a huge segment which is interested in golf. And surprisingly, golf is, I mean, the perception is that it's a very elite sport and, restricted to a chosen few. But it's not, and as we sponsored the tournament, there were some very inspiring stories of golfers who are not at all born with silver spoons in their mouth. So those are the ways we could extend this and bring this to life in a way that will truly touch people. And that's, I think, success as a brand and as a market here.
Wonderful. Manasi, I heard like a couple of things here, including diversity in sports.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a pin on that. But first, sponsorships versus advertising, the regular advertising on TV, on digital. Why do you think, as a marketer, sponsorship works better for a brand like Mastercard?
Advertising, of course, has certain benefits, when you want to educate people. And I'll give you an example. If you want to educate people about using contactless cards, using their credit or debit cards to tap, then that requires advertising in some form because you're busting myths, right? You're actually having a credible voice speaking to them.
Sure.
But increasingly we find, the world is an extraordinarily cluttered place right now. Whichever medium, and on digital, there's more content than any of us know what to do with. So that's when I think sponsorships come in, So to go back to this point of that kid who's walking out with a cricketer, he's going to ensure that his parents are Mastercard loyalists, for years to come. And I think that effect of, what's called story making versus storytelling, which is good advertising. And we find that sponsorships really, really bind people to a brand. Of course, sponsorships are costly, and we are well aware of that. And that's why I said there are cases where we use advertising. There are cases where we use experiences and sponsorships.
Sure.
And both are equally valid.
Now, coming to diversity in sports, in India, of course, you had a campaign a couple of months ago. Tell us your interest in women in sports, like, sponsoring women in sports.
Let's face it, women like us are the minority. We belong to a very privileged section of society where our choices are respected. Many of the women, and that was my personal takeout when we did this campaign called Halke Mein Mat Lo, Don't Take Them Lightly, essentially to get people to watch women's cricket. Because when people watch either in the stadiums or, on TV, on digital, that's when the eyeballs come in, that's when the sponsors come in, that's when the players improve. It's a very virtuous cycle. And I was very gratified to find that there was actually a full house at D.Y. Patil Stadium in Navi Mumbai for the first time. It was a joint campaign done with the BCCI and it was much appreciated. And my personal takeout was, it's incredible how much these women have sacrificed, how hard they've had to fight. Now, I'm not saying men have it easy, but women certainly have it harder.
Yeah.
And, for me as a woman to be able to shine the light on that was incredible. And then, as I said, we followed it up with sports clinics where Dhoni taught a bunch of women, young women, promising cricketers. We had Shiv Kapoor teaching a bunch of women golfers. So we always try and see what more we can do to promote women's sport.
At what point do you think that, there would be substantial amount of ad expenditure by brands, by companies on women's cricket as much as we see in, let's say, men's cricket?
See, I think it will take some time for absolute parity to emerge, but I think there's a certain threshold, or there is that critical point or that tipping point where it becomes viable for advertisers to put in their money behind a women's sport, and that comes with viewership. So as I said, it's a bit of a chicken and egg. You've got to have brands and companies and organizations invest to build up that viewership, to create that popularity. And when that happens and the eyeballs come, then automatically the sponsors come, right? Why would a brand say no to a large audience watching and a lot of engagement?
At this point, I have to ask you then, what made you take the plunge or,
For women's cricket?
Yes, for women's cricket.
Well, so I think it was a couple of things. One, as part of the BCCI sponsorship, we got access to the entire, the entire gamut of players and matches. And as we've engaged in conversations, this is a huge goal of the government and the BCCI to promote women's sports. So it was kind of a meeting of the minds, So as Mastercard, we've had this legacy of doing a lot of work on women's sports. And I think the team really put together something that worked with and the BCCI, it was an absolute partnership, that we brought the idea, they gave us the access, and it was just, it kind of, a lot of things just fell into place.
Thank you, Manasi. Thanks for joining us today and sharing these insights with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
With that, it's a wrap on Storyboard this week. You can catch all of our content on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for watching. We will be back same time next week. See you soon.